Hey guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com with another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending May 1st, 2017. This is episode number 93 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week is about Bless. And some pretty big news came out about Bless this last week, mainly from the Russian version, which will actually be shutting down on May 25th for quote revision. This is certainly sad news, as this version of the game was the most easily accessible by us here in the West. The only positive spin here is that Bless Russia said that the game is only shutting down for revision, which presumably means the new version of the game that NeoWiz is working on with action combat for area games in the West will also be used in the Russian version when they relaunch it. I don't think this is the end of Bless. NeoWiz spent over $60 million on the game already, and while I never played the Korean version of the game, I did play the Russian one, and it was awfully unoptimized. It was near unplayable. My GTX 1080 could barely get good frames, but for now, area games is our best hope to play Bless here in the West. But again, I don't think the game is abandoned. Hopefully we'll hear something about a new version relatively soon, but for now, we must wait. And while the PC version of Bless is shutting down in Russia, a mobile version of Bless called Bless Mobile is in the works by Joy City and will be an Unreal Engine 4 powered mobile MMORPG that's set to release sometime in the first half of 2018. The way things are going with Bless PC here in the West, we may get a Bless Mobile release before the PC version launches. There's no details about the game just yet though, or any gameplay videos either, which is why you're still seeing Bless gameplay footage in the background. While I'm unimpressed with most mobile MMORPGs, I think the technology is getting better and better, so I think we'll start seeing more in-depth mobile MMOs in the near future. Next up, while we're all excited about new games like Lineage Eternal and Lost Ark, we should take a moment to celebrate oldies like The Lord of the Rings Online, which celebrated its 10-year anniversary this last week. 10 years for an MMORPG is a pretty big milestone, especially since most games die off a lot quicker. I mean, remember Genghis Khan Online? I didn't think so. To celebrate the occasion, the game has handed out rewards to all their VIP subscribers and fireworks for everyone else. Here's hoping the game continues to survive and thrive. And while we're talking about milestones, Neverwinter from Perfect World Entertainment just hit a pretty big milestone themselves this last week, reaching 15 million players across all of their platforms, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4. The console release for the game has been a big hit so far, and the PC version is also still chugging along quite nicely, averaging about 2,200 players online at any given time on Steam, which may not seem like much, but it's actually still one of the most played Steam MMORPGs out there. Plus, it's one of the few fairly big budget Western developed free-to-play MMORPGs out there, and it only launched back in 2013, so it's not even that old. If you never played it, I say it's worth trying, especially if you like Dungeons & Dragons, because there's a lot of good lore in the game. And back to the hype front for a second. Next unveiled some new details about Project DH, the upcoming Unreal Engine 4 powered action RPG developed by Mabinogi and Vindictus developers DevCat. The game is set in a steampunk world with dragons. A lot of gameplay revolves around raids, which will be fought on horseback against gigantic monsters in a similar nature to that of Monster Hunter. And the dragons will fight players both in air and on the ground, with players fighting back with giant weapons called cannons, which are apparently the size of people. Project DH is currently being developed for PC, but there are plans to release it on mobile and console as well. But given what we've seen so far, the game is still quite a bit from release, at least 2 years, so we won't be seeing it in America for quite a while. Next up, a quick update for Asta Online. The game officially relaunched on Steam this last week to a surprising amount of fanfare. The game has been averaging about 1,300 players online over the last few days, which is absolutely nuts considering how quickly it shut down the first time around. Perhaps Move Games, the company behind Digimon Masters Online, polished the game up a bit. I'll probably dive into this one and give it another try. I expect a second look for this one after I played a bit more and get a bit higher level. But if you want to play Asta Online, it is back on Steam as of this last week. Moving right along, some pretty exciting news for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. The game secured funds in a Series A funding round from investors and is working for a Series B round as well. This is significant because it means they convince investors to back their game, which means a lot more to me than just raising money on Kickstarter. So Pantheon people are definitely making some great progress on their game. In addition to this, they actually did a pretty long live stream this last weekend showing off the Monk class. And while the game is not quite done yet, there's a lot of stuff already in-game. For those that didn't follow Pantheon, it's a game very heavily inspired by the original EverQuest. Things from interface to movement to some of the mechanics in the game are very similar to EverQuest. Plus, the game has a huge variety of races and classes, much like the original EQ as well. Having played the original EQ extensively, I'm looking forward to at least trying this one. It's worth mentioning, though, that Pantheon will either have a subscription or be buy-to-play, so no free-to-play with this one. And next up, RuneScape is launching a big update on June 5th that introduces the Golden City of Menaphos, a massive city that features hanging gardens, streams, and even a pyramid. Players have been able to see the Golden City in the distance for more than 12 years, but this is the first time it'll all be accessible to players. Menaphos will feature a story of corruption, new quests, a new Slayer dungeon, and new Slayer skill level cap that gets raised from 99 to 120. So that's big news for RuneScape players, especially that skill cap raise. And again, this will all be live on June 5th. And up next, Overwatch goes free to play, wait for it, in China for 1 month. So for the entire month of May, the game will be free to play in China. We've had free weekends here in the West, but never free months. And I suspect the buy-to-play model is a much bigger hurdle for players to overcome in China than here in the West, where it's still norm for most games. And before anyone who doesn't own the game gets any clever ideas about playing Overwatch in China for free, you're going to get a lot of ping, so it's not going to be worth it. At the minimum, 200 to 250, and for an FPS game, that's largely unplayable. I still maintain hope that there's a possibility that Overwatch will go free to play in the West eventually, but not anytime soon. Moving right along, Trio of Saber will be getting a massive combat overhaul soon, and with that comes big changes for the game's stats. Each stat's actual effects have seen big changes as well. Strength used to give physical attack, crit chance, block penetration, and max weight, but now will only give physical attack bonuses. Stats will also have a much greater impact on skill damage going forward, and these changes are a part of a much broader combat update that's set to launch in the near future. And despite a pretty terrible launch, Trio of Savior still gets about 3,500 online users at any given time, and it's easily one of the most popular MMORPGs on Steam, and I still recommend you give it a try if you've never played it. The music alone is top notch. Plus the way you kill enemies and the way they explode always feels satisfying. Up next, Lawbreakers announced their second closed beta test is set to begin on May 19th and will run for 4 days ending on May 22nd. I've played the alpha and the first closed beta, and while I think it's a decent game, I don't think I'll personally be able to buy into it, as it's a buy-to-play title. If they went for the free-to-play model, I think it could attract a sizable player base, but perhaps I'm wrong and the game will do amazing. We'll have to wait and see. The full release for Lawbreakers is still set for sometime this year. I pulled that date from a previous Nexon investor presentation, and they are aiming to get the full game out sometime this year. Just no idea when this year. Next up, a smaller update for Battlerite. The game added a brand new map this last week called Dragon Garden. A new competitive season, Season 3, is also set to begin soon. And while Battlerite remains buy-to-play on Steam right now, the game is still expected to be free-to-play at full launch. While this was initially expected to be sometime in Q1 of this year, it looks like that was pushed back a bit. If you never played Battlerite, definitely give it a try when it goes free-to-play. I've personally only played it for about 25 hours, but when it goes fully free-to-play, more people will play, so I'll probably end up playing more then. Back to the MMORPG front for a moment, a small update for Black Desert Online, but a great one. The game introduced a feature called Sticker UI, which lets players drag some in-game menus and elements outside of the actual game window. Just take a look at the video playing in the background to see what I mean. It's an excellent feature for us gamers with multiple monitors, especially for MMORPGs as menus occupy a lot of screen real estate. In addition to Sticker UI, ship repair kits, new crafting costumes, some class changes have also been added to the game. Make sure to check out the full patch notes on the BDO forums for the full details. I would definitely like to see more and more RPGs do this though, because I play with 3 monitors, so being able to move my menus around as I want would be pretty great. Next up, Wargaming launches its own client, the Wargaming.net game center, where players can download all the Wargaming titles in one place. So it's yet another game launcher, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say I am tired of having to install more game launchers. I don't like having Area Ignite separately from Steam and everything else I use, but it's another game launcher, and besides Wargaming titles, other published games by Wargaming will also make their appearance on there, such as Total War Arena. So expect Wargaming to push their new platform with new game launches in the near future. Moving right along, another older game embraces free-to-play. Awesomenauts is going free-to-play on May 24th, and while the game still maintains a small but dedicated player base, it's weird to see a buy-to-play MOBA when practically every other MOBA is free-to-play, which is probably why the game is opting for a free-to-play model. I suspect that the game's player base will explode when they go free-to-play, and they'll get a much bigger audience. And beyond that, a giant update, Update 4.0, is set to launch on May 24th as well, which will come with networking improvements, a bunch of new content, and other goodies. Players who bought the game though don't need to worry because they get all the future updates and characters and stuff for free. I'm eager to see what kind of player base numbers Awesomenauts has when it goes free-to-play, but we'll have to wait and see. Up next, a small bit of news for Revelation Online. The game introduces players to the Tower of Pain, which is a brand new instance for 5 players that's on 8 floors. This update comes shortly after the Stardust update went live late last month, which added a bunch of other maps and zones to the game as well, so Revelation Online is getting a steady stream of new updates. But I suspect the Chinese version remains well ahead of the Western one. I'm moving right along, some pretty big news for Guild Wars 2. The game's next Living World episode is set to go live on May 2nd, and with it comes a permanent Heart of Thorns price drop, so the expansion is permanently on sale now. So now it's only $20 instead of $30. The next episode of the Living World update is titled Flashpoints, and we'll see the season's story paths converge as shocking secrets uncovered, but we'll know more about that when it actually launches. Perhaps a permanent discount for the Heart of Thorns expansion kind of foretells another expansion in the horizon. No word on that just yet though, that's all speculation on my part, but we'll have to wait and see. Up next, a bit of foreign news for Echo of Soul. The game already failed in China, but is apparently relaunching to try again. And despite the game failing in China, it's still around here in the West. It's not doing so great though. The Steam player base numbers have been in decline for some time. It averages about 70 players online on Steam, but I suspect many more on Area's own launcher. So the game isn't doing great, but it's still hanging in there. I can't imagine it'll do well in China though, because usually when a game shuts down for not being able to attract a big audience, it's not going to do that great on the relaunch. But then again, Asta Online got a huge player base, so I could be entirely wrong. But we'll see how long those Asta players hang around. The next and last bit of news this week comes from Wizard101 and Pirate101. Both games may be coming to Steam soon. The actual news though is that KingsIsle is testing their new clicker game, EverClicker, through Steam Greenlight, and they're using that as a test bed before they launch Wizard101 and Pirate101 on Steam. EverClicker will just get them familiar with Steam's Greenlight process and the process of getting their game on Steam. And of course, I'm not too excited about yet another clicker game, but it's just a test game. Wizard101, on the other hand, is still a fairly massive title. It's actually a pretty good title too. If you have a younger cousin or a younger sister or brother and want to get introduced to MMORPGs, Wizard101 is a kids-friendly game and actually a pretty solid one at that. Anyway guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later guys.